My husband and I meal prepped 65 meals. It took nearly 15 hours and $700 worth of groceries, and it's going to feed our family for the next 6 months. Let me tell you how we did it. If you don't know me, I'm Brandy Willits from Lineage, and my husband and I started our homestead and farm in 2021 when my husband accidentally bought 30 chickens in his sleep. Since then, we've been on this journey to learn how to do all the new homesteading skills, one of which is meal prepping. We've been hooked on meal prepping ever since we started meal prepping before my daughter was born. We prepped about 60 meals, and we did this in a batch of 47 meals, and then we also had meals prepped at our nesting party, which was around 20-ish meals that we had prepped. If you don't know what a nesting party is, it's a way to bless the family before the baby comes, so the friends in the family come over to the house instead of having a baby shower. And you do things like cleaning, organizing, maybe cleaning out the fridge, deep cleaning it, or doing laundry, or meal prepping, doing things that would bless the family so that they are ready to go in their home before the baby is born and brought home. I already mentioned that it took about 15 hours for us to do this batch of meal prepping, but it was spread out over several days, and this is 15 hours of meal prepping as parents. So we have 2 younger children in the home. So if you are planning on doing meal prepping and you want to take less time and you have kids, you could consider having someone help with the kids just to get things done a little bit faster, but it is completely doable even if you have a house full of kids. My husband and I like to do the meal prepping together. Some people don't have someone that can help them do it, and it does take a little bit more time, but it can be done. And I like to recommend, if you are doing it on your own, to spread it out, cooking it during the week to have as a dinner, and then prepping 2 or 3 extra of that same dish to put into the freezer so that you have that to grab from later on. It cost us approximately $700 to get the groceries for all of the meals that we prepped. That comes out to about $10.77 per meal. And we usually have a lot of leftovers, so we have leftovers for several days afterwards, and that's why we only eat about 2 or 3 of these a week. That's why it's going to last us a lot longer to have 65 meals in the freezer than it would if you were eating it every single night. At this price, though, we did already have ingredients in our pantry and in our fridge, like having soy sauce and minced garlic already available, so that was not added into the cost. We did have some leftover ingredients that we ended up bagging up and putting into the freezer because we didn't want to make a meal from it right then, but we would later. This also does not consider any of the ingredients that will be added the day of, but that's not going to be added into this cost. Those day of ingredients could be something like sour cream, tortillas, rice, or anything that you might be adding to the bag of ingredients when you're cooking it or afterwards when you're serving it. This was our biggest and most challenging freezer meal prep to date, and I want to share everything that we've learned so far so that you can prevent yourself from getting overwhelmed if you're thinking about doing freezer meal prepping yourself. But first, I want to share some of the benefits of doing freezer meal prepping. Here are my top 5 reasons that I love doing freezer meal prepping. Number 1, and I think I already stated this in the beginning, but having healthy food options for your family readily available no matter what season you're in your life is going to be a life changer for you. It removes the decision fatigue that you may get when you're trying to decide what to have for dinner and you're asking your spouse, what are we going to have for dinner? You don't have to worry about that. You can just go shop in your freezer and pull something out, even if it's the day of or when you're about to start cooking, because we have things like pressure cookers. Number 2 is I really like to have meals readily available to be able to share that with other people. A big thing that we like to do is join a meal train and provide a meal to another family, especially after they have a baby. And having meals in the freezer to feed other families just like we would feed ourselves is a huge blessing to be able to pay that forward. To sign up without getting stressed and know that you will have something easy and quick and healthy to make for that family. It also makes it really easy to host last minute if your family or friends want to come over or you need a place to hang out. Just pull something out of the freezer and welcome them into your home. There are some things that you can plan for, like having a baby, but sometimes there are things in life that just happen that you can't plan for, and maybe you're too tired or don't have enough time or energy to put into having healthy meals for your family available. And having this in your freezer, again, pull it out, it's ready to go, and it's healthy. Just is life-changing. There are going to be seasons and there are going to be times where you can't cook dinner the way that you would like to cook dinner, or maybe you're tired of the same food, but you don't have the time or energy to look into cooking new recipes, and that's where this meal prepping can help you get a little bit creative, because you can cook recipes that you normally wouldn't cook on the fly and have those available so that you have different options in the freezer. It may seem like you're spending a lot of money on groceries up front because you are investing in it and you're putting it in the freezer for the future, but you do end up saving a lot of money. Not just money that you are going to be paying per meal. It does eliminate the cost of going out to eat. But you're also going to be saving money because you're not going to have food that's going into the fridge and sitting there waiting to be made into a meal and maybe even possibly getting wasted in the fridge. That used to happen to us a lot, where we'd have all these ingredients to cook these meals, and either the day didn't go as we planned and we didn't end up cooking that meal, or we didn't feel like cooking that meal, and so we didn't use the ingredients and they would just go to waste. So much wasted money on those ingredients that would just go to waste. So overall, you're going to be saving a lot of money on groceries. Number 5 is that you can turn pretty much any meal into a freezer prepped meal. And that means you can be taking family recipes or restaurant favorites and cooking them up at home without all the extra effort the day of. There are so many different ways that you can start meal prepping and different types of meal prepping, but the one that we're going to be sharing is the one that we enjoy the most ourselves, and that is having a freezer meal that is just a dump meal. So that means that you're going to take every ingredient, put it in a bag raw, including meat and vegetables, put it in the freezer, and when you pull it out the day of, you're just going to dump it into whatever you're going to be cooking it in. So that could be cooking it in the crock pot, in a pressure cooker, or dumping it on a baking sheet and putting it in the oven. We first learned this technique from the Family Freezer. I highly recommend you check them out. They've got a lot of great recipes and resources. Since learning about this style of freezer meal prepping, we've learned to put our own techniques and spin on the recipes so that it's something easier and more fun for our family. A lot of people get really overwhelmed with freezer meal prepping because they just don't know what type of ingredients and recipes they will need to make. One of the things that we have is a mega list of recipes and types of food that we like to cook. And from that mega list, that's where we go into Pinterest and find all of the recipes that we might enjoy, or finding the recipes from our own family recipe stock that we would just want to turn into a freezer meal. From there, we love to use this app called Plan to Eat. It makes it really easy to take all of the ingredients directly from the page and avoid all of those ads that you see when you go to a recipe page on somebody's website. It just eliminates all the extra clutter and stress of meal prepping and planning. That's one of the reasons we love it. And if you want to try it out, you can try it out for 14 days for free, and I have that linked below. If you do want to get Plan to Eat, you can also get 20% off for your first year. Plan to Eat automatically pulls all of the ingredients that you need from the website that you inserted from Pinterest. So if you find the link for a recipe on Pinterest, you just plug that into Plan to Eat. It pulls everything for you, allows you to schedule it, and then also allows you to auto-generate an ingredient list. And also, here's the kicker, you can send that ingredient list to a local grocery store like Walmart and order the ingredients for pickup. So if you are doing meal prepping or planning, you don't even have to go into the store in order to get all the ingredients, and it just eliminates a lot of the stress of figuring out how you're going to organize all of this information for all these meals. Almost all of the ingredients go into the bag before it goes into the freezer, except for things like liquids, because the broth is just going to take up space and you can just add that the day of, and you usually already have that in the pantry to be able to quickly grab it and add it to the dinner for that night. It is okay to put liquids in it like soy sauce and olive oil and things that come in a can, but you do want to limit what you're putting in the bag. That's going to take up space. In the past, we have included ingredients like rice and pasta in the dish before it goes into the freezer, but now, just out of preference and trial and error, we have figured out that we don't like to add that until the day of. That means that we're cooking it either on the side or adding it to the crock pot or the Instapot after the meal has already cooked. Another great thing about this method of meal prepping is that if you were missing any of the ingredients when you were meal prepping, say you forgot to pick it up from the store, they didn't have it in stock, or you ordered for pickup and they didn't include it in the bag, you don't have to worry because you can just mark it. We like to mark it on our labels to let us know that it's something that we need to add the day of. You don't need to have any special tools in order to do this type of meal prepping, but it is handy to have something to prop up your bag. You can use regular gallon-sized bag or the reusable kind. We like to use the vacuum seal bags because we find that vacuum sealing allows our food to last longer and it prevents any kind of freezer burn. We've in the past had some issues with some of the bags, the regular gallon-sized bags, ripping once we pulled them out of the freezer just because they had gotten stuck to some of the other bags in the freezer. We've had several different types of vacuum sealers, but you can use just a simple one. We use this one because we've also been using it for all of the other meats and vegetables that we've been growing and raising on our farm. One of the comments we get a lot on our freezer meal prepping videos is that they don't have the space in their freezers to have all of these meals. And a lot of people don't have the amount of freezer space that we have, but I will say that even if you don't have the space for maybe 10 meals prepped, it makes a huge difference just to have 3 to 5 recipes already in your freezer. So taking the time to have that planned out and prepped and put into your freezer is going to make a big difference when it comes to just everyday life. I think I've already mentioned that we usually go through 2 to 3 of the meals a week, and that's why it's going to last us about 6 months. The reason we don't go through more than that per week, we have a lot of leftovers where it lasts longer and we can make just 1 meal per week or 2 meals per week, but usually we don't go over 3 meals per week. The last time we had the large batch of 47 meals, it lasted approximately 4 months for us. The reason we don't go through more than that during the week is because we usually have some time with friends or family where we're either at their house or we're out and we just have to grab something out. Other times when we aren't using these freezer meals, we're either using ingredients that we have already had in the freezer from our farm, from raising the animals or the vegetables, and we use that. Or sometimes we find a really good deal on some meats and vegetables at the store and we'll get that and use it for the week. So I've covered all the basics of freezer meal prepping, and now I'm going to walk you through the process of doing a freezer meal prep batch. We finalize our plans and shop for our groceries the day before we plan to meal prep. This is also when we like to create the custom labels that are going to go on each of our bags. Having these custom labels makes it a lot easier to prep the meals because the ingredients are on the bag itself and you're not going to have to print out all the recipes and have that on the side while you're prepping the meals. In the past, we did not have the amounts of each ingredient on the bag, but since then we now include that on our labels just because it makes it easier when we are prepping the meals, especially such a large quantity. We do have our label template and our freezer meal prepping 101 guide that I will link down below for you in case you guys are interested in using the label template. I already mentioned how Plan to Eat is great for sending your groceries to have them ready to go and available to pick up at your local grocery store, and that's a great option. But for us, something this size where we were doing 65 meals, we just preferred to go into the store to make sure that we were getting the quantity that we needed. You can do it either way. You can pick up the groceries or you can go in the store and pick up all the ingredients yourself. You will just have to plan for ordering your groceries ahead of time if you are going to be going to the store to pick them up. So that's probably going to need to be done one more day before you actually go get your groceries. That means it's 2 days before you're actually going to start meal prepping. As soon as we get home with all of our ingredients, we put them in the fridge. Anything that is shelf stable will just stay on the counters because we're going to be using them the next day. Either that day or the next day before the actual prep starts to happen. I like to prep some of the other ingredients like onions or carrots or anything that's going to be in a lot of the recipes because this will allow us to quickly grab it and go into the bags as soon as we start meal prepping. A lot of this meal prepping before the meal prepping can happen with a food processor, which makes the process a lot quicker. One of the easiest ways to get a greater number of meals that you're prepping in your meal prepping batch is to increase the quantity of the recipe that you'll be making. So if you're making 12 meals, plan to make 3 of those meals the same 4 recipes so that you are making the same recipe over and over again and not having to find or flip through different ingredients or recipe sheets. For this batch of our 65 meals, there were 31 of them that we made twice, and then the extra 3 meals were just from ingredients that were left over that we wanted to use up. It's great to have all of the ingredients readily available, whether that's in the fridge or on the counter. We like to keep all of the refrigerated items right there in our fridge in our kitchen so we can pull and grab it when we need to add it to the bag. Once you start adding ingredients to the bag, we like to add all the vegetables to the bottom and seasoning somewhere in the mix and then adding the meat on the top because when you pour it out of the bag, essentially the meat, you'll want to have that on the bottom of whatever you're going to cook it in. So just putting that in last will help with cooking it once it's thawed out. Because you've already prepped your bags with the labels, all you'll need to do is seal up the bag with ingredients inside and place it in the freezer where it's flat because it will help you with storage in the long run. Half of the time we forget to pull the meat out the night before. We usually end up pulling it out the day of. It usually gets pulled out at dinner time. And that's why we love having a pressure cooker because it makes it really easy to get the meal from frozen to cooked right away. A lot of people have told me they don't like the idea of meal prepping because they don't know what they're going to want to eat the day of. But the great thing about doing this type of meal prepping is you can try all different kinds of ingredients and have it ready to go. You can make the meals whatever you want. Either something that you eat all the time or something that's brand new, and then choose the meal that you want based on your mood. Most of the time we choose what we eat based on our mood and what we're craving. Also going to have to think about whether or not you have some of the additional ingredients that you will need to add the day of available when you're pulling something out of the freezer. So maybe you have a lot of extra sour cream, so you decide to have tacos instead of soup. I'm telling you, freezer meal prepping is a game changer. Seriously, I don't know why we haven't been doing this sooner. If you're ready to dive into freezer meal prepping, then grab our Freezer Meal Prepping 101 guide. It's where we have some starter recipes, our label templates, and some starter tips to help the process go a lot smoother for you. We'll have that linked below. It's probably obvious by now, but we think doing freezer meal prepping is worth it. And we think spending 15 hours and $700 worth of groceries is worth it to have 6 months worth of food. I don't know if we'll be doing a batch this size again, but we know that we can do it based on this experience. We love having these healthy meals readily available for our family, also saving us time, money, and energy. It is completely worth it for our family to spend this time and money to have these meals prepped so that we are saving so much money and time in the long run. Let me know in the comments if you think it's worth it or not.